Welcome to From Center Ice, the podcast. My name is Courtney, and of course it is Friday evening, so this is the From Center Ice happy hour, and once again I have some Pride wine with me since we are still in June, Pride Month. I will take a sip. Cheers to that. Actually, let's do two there. Cheers to Pride Month. But yeah, it's Friday. How has your week been? Mine's been okay. We had game 1 of the Stanley Cup Final. We had both series wrap up in the American Hockey League, so we have the Calder Cup Final matchup set. It hasn't begun yet, so that's exciting. That starts this weekend. And then yesterday, I went to a sports card show out in Rosemont, Illinois, and I found some stuff there. Didn't find any Corey Crawford cards that I was otherwise searching for. I did get some from Mr. Puck Junk himself, Sal. He had 2 that I needed, so that was very nice of him to hold those for me. But other than that, I didn't find any other ones. I mostly ended up getting some... Yeah? You gonna make your appearance on Happy Hour this week? Come on, buddy. No? You're not gonna jump up here? Do you have something to say about my hockey cards? Now you're walking back toward me. You do have something to say about my hockey cards. Yeah? Hi, buddy. How are you doing? How was your week? Are you happy during this happy hour? Please don't rub on my cords and stop the recording. What do you have to say to your fans, baby? What do you have to say to your fans? I don't think they want to just know that you are rubbing on the cords and seeing your tail just waving in the background. What's going on? What do you have to say? Nothing? You're just gonna stare at me? Oh, goodness. If you are new to From Center Ice, and especially the Happy Hour or the Cozy Cast, my cat Baby likes to make his appearances every episode because he doesn't like when I give attention to somebody other than him. So he hears me talking and he has to come running and being like, I need to be involved in this because you are speaking and I know you're not speaking to me because I'm not in the same room as you. So he usually makes an appearance here, but then he likes to rub on my cords and I get very afraid that the recording is going to turn off or he's going to mess something up. Come here, buddy. Yes, thank you. Do you have anything to say to your fans? They love to hear from you. I'm sure they would love to know what you think of the Stanley Cup Final so far. You watched Game 1 with me. Did you like it? Yeah? Does a head rub mean yes? You're so quiet right now. Usually when the camera's not on and the microphones aren't on, he's just talking always. Yes, baby, this is great. People are going to hear you purring again if you're just going to sit right in front of the microphone here. Please stop. You don't need to eat the plastic. That's one thing you don't need to do. So I'm going to have to kick you out if you're going to try to eat plastic. This is not an ASMR podcast. People don't want to hear you chomping on a plastic thing. I promise you. You're just gonna... Thanks, bub. Crazy boy. Anyway, sir, thank you. Can you go somewhere where you're not being a nuisance, please? Thank you. I appreciate it. Please don't chew on that bag now. Do I have to chase you out of here? Sir. See, now you get to witness an argument between me and my cat, and this is what an argument looks like between me and a cat, I guess. All right, he is leaving the room now, so he's not going to be chomping on plastic in your poor ears right by the microphone. But anyway, I went to a sports card show in Rosemont and got some vintage cards because since the Corey Crawford cards that I need are becoming fewer and far between and a lot more difficult to find, I've been working on older sets now because one of the things that I really enjoy about collecting hockey cards And one of the things that keeps me into it is that I am also interested in the history of the NHL and of hockey and the game. And I enjoy seeing players that are in the Hall of Fame and some of the guys who really changed the way that the game is played, and just seeing some of the bigger names from years and decades past, and not just for the Blackhawks, but for the league as a whole. I got a couple Cheevers cards yesterday, also some Bernie Parent cards. I also really enjoy goaltenders, so obviously I grabbed some of those guys, but I've become very interested in goalie cards of goaltenders with really creepy looking masks. The two that I got yesterday, they were not wearing their masks because they were some of the 70s O-Peachy cards. But I have started collecting other goaltender cards where they are wearing super creepy masks, and Cheevers is definitely one of those guys. And of course, the history of goaltending and the equipment that they wear also interests me, being interested in the history of the league and also being a big goaltender fan. So seeing those cards is always super cool, because these days goaltenders have pretty cool art on their masks, and they're neat to look at, and they match the team colors and all of that. But when these guys first really started wearing masks, they were so creepy looking, and it was just absolutely amazing. And I love looking at them because it's terrifying but really cool all at the same time. And I mean, if I was a skater, I wouldn't want to get close to those guys. They look absolutely deranged in those creepy masks. So maybe that was part of the game plan there. But yeah, so I grabbed some retro cards, and I like grabbing cards of any player, really, especially those retro ones, because I get to learn about other players if they aren't some of the bigger names like a Cheevers or a Bernie Parent or Sawchuk or Gretzky, of course, which I saw a ton of Gretzky cards yesterday, and a lot of Patrick Waugh as well. Those were the main two that I saw. Not a lot of vendors had hockey cards at the show yesterday, which was a little disappointing. So I spent most of my time just hunting for hockey cards instead of looking through the actual hockey cards that they had. So, you know, the hockey cards don't bring in as much money for vendors as, say, your football or baseball or basketball cards do. Those go for a ridiculous amount, whereas hockey is kind of the trailing sport there, which is nice for hockey collectors such as myself. And some of those cards are definitely super pricey, but nothing compared to the other sports. So vendors don't typically have a lot of hockey, and they're just less popular. Although growing in popularity, which is good and also kind of annoying at the same time. So it's good because then hopefully more vendors will have hockey. I talked to a couple yesterday that said that they've sold more hockey than the other sports, and maybe that is because they are cheaper and people are buying the loose cards that are like $1 or 50 cents or a bundle for $1 or something like that. But they said that their hockey cards were a lot more popular than some of the other ones, so that's a plus side. If you go to these shows, maybe more vendors will have hockey. There's going to be another one in the Chicago area in November, I believe. So if you're into that type of thing, and there's stuff probably all over the country, I would assume. There's definitely some smaller shows as well. But it's also kind of annoying because a lot of people have been buying hockey cards not to collect them and then maybe sell what they don't need, but they've been buying them to just quote unquote invest and try to get that next hit so they can just resell it. So they're not even interested in hockey, they're just interested in making a buck off of it. And while I understand that and, make money however you do, like you get that bag, but for actual collectors such as myself, that gets really annoying because it drives up the price of boxes, it drives up the price of everything, and then I don't know, it's just kind of sad. And I think that it's also pricing kids out of the hobby, which also sucks because I got started collecting cards when I was a kid, collecting Pokemon cards and Yu-Gi-Oh cards. And I remember they were even pretty expensive to a kid back then. And but my parents would buy me some packs every now and then. We'd go to Target or Walmart or wherever you buy your packs, and I'd see a pack and they'd get me some Pokemon cards, and then I'd look through them and organize them all in my little binder, and then I'd trade them with friends, and it was just a lot of fun. And I think that the hobby should be fun, especially for kids, and that's how you grow the game of hockey. You start with the kids, you got to get them into the sport, because eventually all of us people who are already into the game are going to die off, and then you don't have any fans left if you don't get the kids involved and interested. And that's one way to do it, because they can collect a guy and then see them out on the ice, or maybe open a pack and get a super shiny card, something that's super cool, and then they maybe tune into a game they wouldn't have before, and that's how you start to grow the game. And I know that I've tuned into random games just because I ended up with a lot of one guy's cards, and then I start rooting for them. And that's even me as a obviously very dedicated Blackhawks fan and Maple Leafs fan. I ended up with a bunch of Shane Bowers cards from 2020-21, a rookie for the Avalanche, and so I just kept on grabbing his cards when I saw them, and that's kind of how you grow things organically, getting people interested. And a lot of younger people are interested in trading cards, but they are easier to find for the other sports. Hockey isn't always super easy to find. I go to local card shops here in Rockford, and there's not a lot of hockey. There's one that knows me for coming in looking for hockey cards, because not many people do. And they only have a small section, whereas they have a bunch of other for baseball, basketball, football. And so if you have younger folks going into those stores and just seeing those cards available for $1.25, whatever, they'll start collecting those and then getting into those sports. And so I think when people enter that realm, whereas maybe they were in the other sports before, but now they are stepping into hockey, which is just harder to find in general in the States, then you really start pricing the kids out of the hobby. And I think it needs to still be fun for the kids, because it's just cardboard with pictures on it at the end of the day, and it's kind of funny thinking to myself, trying to rationalize the hobby, like you're just collecting pieces of cardboard with pictures on it. But hobbies aren't always super rational, and if you enjoy something that's not hurting anybody, then go for it. And collecting hockey cards certainly doesn't hurt anybody. So if you're having fun with it, then more power to you. And I do genuinely enjoy it. But I feel like it's a hobby that's I don't even know what I'm saying anymore, that sort of started with younger generations, and of course collecting cards and bubble gum packs and all of that. But then people saw the opportunity to really make a bunch of money off of it, and now you have higher end sets, and some of those boxes have like one card in them, but they sell for hundreds of dollars, and that's just insane to me. And I guess if you have the extra cash laying around that you can just spend on that, and that's what you want to spend it on, then hey, more power to you, I guess. But I definitely draw a line somewhere, and that's not my area of the hobby. I like quantity, and of course I like quality, but there's a line for sure. But I think that ultimately, all of these people stepping into the hockey card world just because they want to invest and try to hit on the card. I don't know, it kind of makes me roll my eyes and ruins some things, you know? They'll just buy cases of these boxes, whereas maybe if they weren't buying them, they would be a little more affordable and people could buy them for their kids and so on and so forth. So I did spend like the last year organizing my hockey card collection, and I want to go back through it because I set aside some duplicates for retired players, and I need to go back and grab duplicates for current players, but I want to donate those to somewhere that they will end up in the hands of kids. I know there's some children's hospitals that take donations of trading cards and such. I just need to look into it and find the right organization to donate them to, but I think that it should be a hobby that can be shared by everybody, whether you are, I don't know, 5 up to 105, and these people coming in and not caring about the sport and just wanting to resell for stupid amounts of money. I think it kind of ruins that a little bit. But that's my rant on hockey cards since I went to a show yesterday. Over the off season, there's going to be more hockey card content. If that's something you're into, that's something to look forward to. It's definitely not going to be the only thing. So if you're not into collecting and hockey cards, then don't worry. There will be other things as well, but that's one of my biggest hobbies and one of the things that's been taking up a lot of my time for the past year. So I figure put that into some videos, and since it's something I'm interested in, maybe that will come across and interest you guys as well. But let's move on from the hockey card topic here, because I could really go on forever about it. I could do a whole different podcast just about hockey cards and collecting, which, if that is something you're interested in, definitely check out the Puck Junk podcast. I highly recommend. I'll take a sip there. And then we will move on to the Stanley Cup playoffs. And of course, we are currently in the Stanley Cup Final. I can't believe we're already at the final. The season's almost over, even though it's also felt about 10 years long at this point. And now there's a cat hair in my face. Sorry. If you're watching the video, that's what was going on there. There's a cat hair flying in my face. Yeah, the season has felt absolutely eternal when you think about what's happened from the beginning of the 21-22 season up until now. But at the same time, I can't believe it's almost over. It's just crazy to me. But we had game 1 of the Stanley Cup Final on Wednesday between the Colorado Avalanche and the Tampa Bay Lightning. And what a game that was. Colorado had 9 days off after sweeping the Edmonton Oilers in the Western Conference Final. So they came in very rested, and the question was, are they going to be too rested and come out rusty? And they definitely did not. Tampa Bay went to 6 games with the Rangers, and so they had a few days off there, but not 9 like Colorado did, and they looked maybe a bit worn down in that first period. Definitely didn't look bad, just maybe a bit less energy than Colorado had. So maybe that had to do with less rest than the Avalanche, or they had to come to Colorado since the Avs obviously have home ice advantage in this round. So they had to deal with the altitude and all of that, and that definitely plays a factor. I've only been to the Denver area once, but I didn't necessarily notice anything breathing-wise because I wasn't doing any sports, but as soon as I got there, it's like all of the moisture left my body because it's so dry and there's no humidity, and so my knuckles were cracking and all of that. So there's definitely a difference in the climates, especially from Florida to Colorado. I mean, you have basically in the ocean at sea level to a mile above. So there's definitely a difference there, but every team that comes through there has to be prepared for that. And if it really played that much of a factor, then you'd have Colorado winning the Stanley Cup every single year. So I would assume Tampa adjusts to it at some point, and it could have just been a off game for them in game one. They've had 3 series now where they've lost the first game and looked pretty poor doing so. They lost game 1 to Toronto. They lost game 1 to the New York Rangers. Obviously, they swept the Florida Panthers, so they didn't lose game 1 there. So 3 of the 4 rounds, they've lost to the first game, and they won the previous 3 rounds, so you obviously can't write off Tampa Bay, especially after one game. Anybody willing to write off a team after one game is jumping the gun a little bit there. But I would expect they come back in game 2 with a better all-around effort, 60-minute effort rather than just 40 minutes, because they did step it up there in the second period. And it was 3-1 at that point, but they tied it up in the second period, made it 3-3. Nobody scored in the third period, so it went to overtime. And that, why not? Why not have overtime in game 1 of the Stanley Cup Final? It just seems to make sense. I mean, as a Blackhawks fan, it definitely makes sense because the Hawks are very good at going to overtime in the playoffs. Or I should say they were very good at going to overtime in the playoffs since they haven't made the playoffs since 2017 or 2018. No, 2017? I don't know. No, 18. Guys, there have been a lot of failures lately, and I'm not including the bubble in Edmonton where they did beat the Edmonton Oilers in the play-in round, so they were technically in the playoffs, but only because they expanded the playoff roster, so otherwise they wouldn't have been in. But, yeah, I'm not including that. They haven't made the real playoffs in a while, so they used to be good at going to overtime. But it's been a while. So, yeah, that didn't surprise me at all. I was like, overtime in the playoffs? This feels normal. This feels right. But Colorado didn't want to play with fire too long there, apparently, because they scored a minute and 23 seconds into overtime, I believe it was. And Andrei Burakovsky got the winning goal. Valerie Nichushkin took the shot. No, that's a lie. JT Compher took the shot. It was blocked by Victor Hedman, and then Nichushkin got the puck off of the block and passed it over to Burakovsky, who then had the wide open net to shoot into. So the Avs won after having two goal leads, and then the game ending up tied, but then they won in overtime. And Darcy Kemper was back after suffering an upper body injury in game 1 against the Edmonton Oilers. So he was back and healthy and in net, and he looked a little shaky. He only allowed 3 goals. I say only, that's kind of a lot in a playoff game. Well, maybe not in the West, since we've seen a lot of very high-scoring games in the West during this postseason, but it's been a lot of fun. I will definitely say that. But he allowed 3 goals. Of course, they were to Tampa Bay, so, I mean, take that as you will. And Tampa had one of the prettier goals of the postseason from Kucherov to Andre Palat, so definitely can't blame Kemper for all of them. Maybe the first one, which Nick Paul scored, but the other 2, you want him to have the Sergachev shot. But it doesn't matter, because the Avalanche won, and obviously I am rooting for the Colorado Avalanche. I make my bias very known, even though I do recap videos after the games. I definitely have a team that I root for. I don't know how people don't have a team that they root for and just enjoy the game. I don't see how people can do that, and there are so many people that can, and I wish that I could, but I have to choose a team. Otherwise, I just can't get as into it. Even if I'm watching some sport I have no clue about, I will just pick a team, be like, this is the one I am rooting for. and I will root for them until the end of the game. I don't know how people can just sit down and enjoy a game. It's so funny to me. Kind of like casual fans of hockey. I don't know how that works. I don't understand how people can do it, but I am very envious sometimes because being a hardcore or diehard fan or whatever you want to call it, it can get a little exhausting at times. And especially when your team is bad, such as the Blackhawks, or when they have a lot of off-ice things going on, such as the Blackhawks, or if your team keeps making it to the playoffs but can't get past the first round, such as the Toronto Maple Leafs, it gets a little difficult. But some people can just be super casual and just enjoy games, and I am very envious of that. But this was such a good game between Colorado and Tampa. Definitely the best two teams in the league. Of course, you have the two-time reigning Stanley Cup champions over there in Tampa. And then you have Colorado, who have been a cup favorite for like the past 4 seasons, but haven't been able to get past the second round. And then they finally did. That curse was broken. Now they're in the cup final, and they have a 1-0 lead in the cup final. Ugh, it's crazy. It's crazy, but I'm so glad that they are finally there because they are such a fun team to watch and so high-powered with that offense with Nathan MacKinnon and Cale Makar and Mikko Rantanen and Bowen Byram and Gabriel Landeskog, and now you have Arturi Lehkonen scoring all these goals and Valeri Nichushkin and JT Compher and Burakovsky. Like, you go up and down the lineup, all these guys are scoring goals, and then you look at the forwards for Tampa Bay, you got Steven Stamkos, Nikita Kucherov, Andre Palat, Alex Killorn, Patrick Maroon always seems to do something, Corey Perry always in the front of the net mixing it up with the goaltender, Nick Paul, who they got at the trade deadline, can't stop scoring goals now, Brandon Hagel grinding it out along the boards. I miss Bagel. Of course, the Tampa Bay Lightning got him at the deadline, well, not on deadline day, but the Friday before, from the Chicago Blackhawks. He's been one of my favorite players since he came to the Ice Hogs, and then when Corey Crawford retired, he was my favorite Blackhawk, and then they traded him away, and I know, I should be happy. We got 2 first-round picks, and Radish and Kachuk, but I miss Brandon Hagel, and I would undo the trade if I could. I could be eating those words in a few years, that is for sure. We don't know who the draft picks are going to be yet that we get from this trade, so I could definitely be eating those words, and if I'm wrong, I'll say I was wrong. But for now, I miss Bagel, and I would undo the trade. But yeah, so the Colorado Avalanche won 4-3 in overtime. The goals in the game came from Gabriel Landeskog, the captain for the Colorado Avalanche, Valeri Nichushkin, Arturi Lehkonen, Andre Burakovsky. And then on the Tampa Bay side, Nick Paul, Andre Palat, and Mikhail Sergachev scored. And Sergachev's goal was just on a wrist shot from the right point and went posted in. You definitely want Kemper to stop that. But who knows? Maybe it was just a great shot and no goaltender ever is stopping it. But it seemed pretty weak watching it on TV. So the guys who got points in this game, I will start with the Colorado Avalanche. We have, of course, Valeri Nichushkin, 1 goal and 1 assist, assisted on the game winner. Gabriel Landeskog, 1 goal, 1 assist. Mikko Rantanen, 2 assists. He assisted on 2 goals in the first period. Arturi Lehkonen, 1 goal. Andre Burakovsky, 1 goal, the game winner. Nathan MacKinnon got 1 assist. JT Compher got 1 assist. And Bowen Byram got 1 assist. And then on the Tampa Bay side, we have Mikhail Sergachev with 1 goal. Nick Paul with 1 goal. Andre Palat with 1 goal. Braden Point had 1 assist. He was back in the lineup after being injured in Game 7 against the Toronto Maple Leafs. He came back for Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Final, so Tampa is definitely very happy to have him back. I'm sure it'll take a game or two for him to get back up to game speed, but he did get an assist in this one, so he's on his way back. Brandon Hagel had 1 assist, Anthony Cirelli had 1 assist, Nikita Kucherov had 1 assist, Ryan McDonough had 1 assist, and Victor Hedman had 1 assist. So no Tampa Bay Lightning players with 2 points in that game, only 1 point apiece there, but it was 4-3. It was a close game. It went to overtime. It really could have gone either way there. And in goal, we had Darcy Kemper up against, of course, Andrei Vasilevsky, because barring something horrible happening, God forbid, Brian Elliott's not going to see any ice time for Tampa Bay in the postseason. Kemper had 20 saves on 23 shots for an .870 save percentage. It's not great. Of course, it's his first game back since game 1 of the Western Conference Final, and he had that upper body injury and he had an eye injury, so who knows. But he looked a little unsure in his crease there and was a bit scary to watch. I wasn't confident watching him in net, maybe as confident as I was in Pavel Francouz, and there was a point in the game where I was like, I want Frankie back, just put Frankie back in the net. This is too much for me to handle, too much stress, too much anxiety. And I will drink to that. But he ended up getting it done. So we'll see what he looks like in game 2. Maybe he'll look a bit more settled in his crease there, since get the game 1 jitters out of the way, especially coming back from the injury and it being game 1 of the Stanley Cup Final. And then Andrei Vasilevsky made 34 saves on 38 shots, so he had a bit more work to do there, but he had an .895 save percentage, so both goaltenders finishing with a sub-900 save percentage. And on the power play, Tampa Bay went 0 for 3. Colorado went 1 for 3, so both teams getting 3 power plays in that game. But it was just a super fast-paced game, which was nice to see. You never really know. The first game is kind of a feeling out process, especially the first period of the first game is usually more of a feeling out process, but both of these teams brought a good game. It took Tampa maybe a little bit longer to get fully up to speed in game 1, but they weren't bad in the first period, just not maybe the Tampa that we are used to. What surprised me was the amount of hits in this game. The total was 43-40 in favor of Colorado. And when I first typed that out in my notes, I put 43-40 Tampa Bay. And then I looked at it again and I was like, nope, that was definitely Colorado with 43 and not Tampa, which I would have assumed because when you think of the more physical team between the two, you think of Tampa Bay. But nope, Colorado wasn't laying down and just taking the beating from them. They were giving it right back. So I think that definitely also contributed to the win, but also the Avs forecheck was really on point and back to where it was when they were having really, really good games. And they lost that a bit against the Oilers, but Edmonton has a lot more fast skaters than maybe Tampa does. I would say overall, Tampa Bay has the better roster top to bottom, which isn't a hot take at all. I think you ask 100 people in the hockey world and maybe 95 tell you the same thing and the other 5 are from Edmonton. But it's not like the Oilers are a bad team. They definitely have some weak spots on their roster, especially they're in goal and on the back end, perhaps, but their skaters are a lot faster, so I think that messed with the Avalanche a bit because they're a team that skated more at the Avs speed, whereas Colorado can use their speed to their advantage against Tampa and get in there on the forecheck and really pester those defensemen. And it did result in a few turnovers that went Colorado's way. The second goal of the game for Valerie Nichushkin came off of a strong forecheck. So now somebody's mowing their lawn outside. Why does this always seem to happen? If you can hear that, I'm sorry. I don't know if the microphone will pick that up or not. If it does, maybe I can edit it out with some noise cancelers, but we'll see when I listen back to it. But yeah, the Avs forecheck was definitely a bright spot of that game, and that's how they play when they get good results, is they are strong on that forecheck, especially Arturi Lehkonen and Gabriel Landeskog. Those two consistently throughout this postseason have been very good on the forecheck and causing turnovers in the offensive zone where the Avs can get some scoring chances off of them rather than just dumping and changing or maybe turning the puck over in the offensive zone and then it going the other way and it's a shot on your net. With these two, they maybe turn the puck over, but then they work hard to get the puck back. And that's kind of Brandon Hagel's game as well for Tampa fans out there. If he was on a line with somebody and had a partner kind of like Lehkonen and Landeskog do, then you'd see much of the same from them because that's something he's very good at, as well as having an offensive streak. I know he hasn't put up a super large amount of points in the postseason, and I don't believe he did in the regular season with Tampa as well. But, adjusting to a new team and plays further down in the lineup because Tampa's roster is stacked compared to the Blackhawks, which we just won't talk about. But once the points start coming for Hagel, they will just keep coming, and I'm sure you see a better season out of him next year. And, of course, Tampa might lose some guys in the offseason as well, which would cause him to play up in the lineup. I haven't taken a look at their roster and their free agents or anything like that, so I don't know for sure yet. That's something obviously you look at in the offseason, and it's not the offseason for the Lightning yet. But Tampa fans, if you've been hard on Hagel so far, you're going to end up loving him because he produces at every level that he plays at, and sometimes it just takes a little bit for those points to start rolling in. I said this in my recap video for Game 1, kind of went on a little rant about Brandon Hagel there because I miss him, and it's hard watching him on another team, especially a team that I severely don't want to win because I want to root for him, but I just cannot. But you're going to end up loving him if you are a Tampa fan and have been hard on him so far. So, just know that. And he's playing injured, but most of your team is playing injured. During that Florida series, I was calling them the duct tape together body parts that just resemble a hockey team, because it's basically what they seemed like at that point. Everybody was injured. Now they seem, maybe some of the guys have gotten over some of their injuries, or maybe they've gotten some better injections and they just don't feel it during the game. But anyway, this was a great game. A great Game 1 between the Avs and the Lightning. And we will see what Game 2 holds, which is tomorrow. But moving on from the Stanley Cup Final and Game 1, we don't really have Blackhawks news other than Jalen Lipin, their prospect, who is still in the playoffs in junior. Him and the Edmonton Oil Kings won the WHL title, and now they have a shot at the Memorial Cup. So that is super exciting. If you are into watching CHL hockey, you can tune in and watch a Blackhawks prospect in Jalen Lipin and the Edmonton Oil Kings and see how far they go. In Ice Hogs news, they re-signed Cale Howarth. He didn't play a whole lot last season and split some time between the Indy Fuel and the Rockford Ice Hogs, but there were definitely some games where he made himself known and made an impact out there on the ice. I have a feeling that his second season with the team will be even better, and we don't know what the full roster is going to look like yet, because we don't know what the Blackhawks are going to do in the offseason, which is a terrifying thought in and of itself. But of course, whatever they choose to do ultimately impacts the Ice Hogs as well. So it's going to be hard talking about their next season as well. I said I don't know if it was the Cozy Cast or last week's Happy Hour, that I don't really know when to talk about the next season for the Blackhawks yet, because the team is going to look so much different. It's kind of the same with the Ice Hogs, because their season is dependent on what the Blackhawks decide to do. So in between whenever the Cup Final ends and the draft is probably just going to be about season recap and maybe some wish lists looking forward, what would be good for the team to do, maybe what they need to do going forward, some prospects to focus on, which hopefully they keep around and not just trade away, which we have been so very used to. And then, of course, guys that they might draft, which is hard to say because we don't know how Kyle Davidson and his crew are going to, how should I say this? How they are going to approach the draft and what types of players they are going to take, since we haven't had a draft with these guys in charge yet. Stan Bowman was still around last offseason during the 2021 draft when they took Nolan Allen in the first round, and that whole nonsense. We're not even going to go into that. It's time to move past Stan Bowman and everything that happened last season. And I don't say move past everything that happened last season as in forgetting about what happened to Kyle Beach, because that is a story that needs to continue until they prove that they are actually making this organization a safe place for their players. So that is not something that needs to be forgotten about, but just so much happened with the Blackhawks last summer and during this season. It's kind of, with them entering a rebuild, kind of a refresher, and I'll talk more about that when we are actually in the off season and there is no more NHL hockey happening. But yeah, so we'll see what they decide to do at the draft and how they approach it, but that's all we have for Ice Hogs and Blackhawks news, really. So moving on to NHL news, we have a retirement to announce, which I guess is kind of Ice Hogs, Blackhawks news adjacent. Carter Hutton, goaltender, 36 years old. He has announced his retirement. He was with the Chicago Blackhawks Rockford Ice Hogs organization for the 2011-2012 season and the 2012-2013 season. I didn't realize he was only here for 2 years. It definitely felt like he was around for a lot longer than that. But he was here for those 2 seasons and split time between the NHL and the AHL those seasons and the seasons prior to that. But once he left here, he stayed in the NHL and had stops with the Nashville Predators, the St. Louis Blues, the Buffalo Sabres, and the Arizona Coyotes. In the AHL, he played 120 games. He had a record of 60, 44, and 8. And he had a .911 save percentage with a 2.64 goals against average. And then in the NHL, he played 235 games. He had a record of 94, 90, and 27 with a .908 save percentage and a 2.76 goals against average, which, all things considered, for Carter Hutton isn't too bad, considering he spent a few seasons with the Buffalo Sabres and the Arizona Coyotes. So congratulations to Carter Hutton, and I hope he enjoys retirement. We'll see if he decides to stick around hockey and the game, or if he just goes off into retired bliss. But I'm happy for him that he was able to carve out a pretty solid NHL career after leaving Chicago. And he did put up pretty decent numbers considering where he played after here. So congrats to him. Moving on, we have a trade to announce, which happened today. And the Vegas Golden Knights traded Evgeny Dadonov, apparently, to the Montreal Canadiens for Shea Weber, or Shea Weber's contract, since he's not going to play again. And I still have a cat hair in my face. So I'm sorry it's making my nose itch if you are watching this video. If you recall, the Golden Knights tried to trade Dadonov at the trade deadline to the Anaheim Ducks, but apparently he had a no-trade list that the Golden Knights just ignored or didn't look at, so then the league voided the trade. It didn't happen. And of course, right after that, he came in and scored an overtime goal against the Chicago Blackhawks, because that's just always how it was going to be. So they couldn't trade him then. So apparently they have traded him today. We will see if it sticks, but so far it has. I guess he wasn't on, or I guess Montreal, sorry, hiccup here. I guess Montreal wasn't on his no-trade list, and they made the move for cap reasons. It's kind of funny if you read the replies to the tweet about the trade. People are up in arms over trading Dadonov for a washed-up, old, very injured defenseman. I don't think they realize that he's not going to play for them. Shea Weber is unofficially retired on LTIR retirement because of his injuries. He's not going to play again, so it's purely cap relief for the Vegas Golden Knights, who severely need it, especially now with Jack Eichel on their roster and on their cap. So they traded away his contract to get Shea Weber's contract, and then they can spend to the cap and then put him on LTIR, so then they can spend over the cap, blah, blah, blah. We all know how that goes. He's on Robidaut Island, basically. And in other news around the Montreal Canadiens, they expect to have a captain for next season, according to their general manager, Kent Hughes. So Shea Weber was the captain. And then, of course, he didn't play last season because of the injuries, so they didn't have one. And now they expect to have a captain for next season. So we will see who it's going to be. There have been rumblings that Brendan Gallagher is a strong candidate. Nick Suzuki is a strong candidate. So it's probably going to be between those two. But I think they should give it to the eternally smiling rookie in Cole Caulfield, just because he's a happy guy, or he appears to be a happy guy on the outside. They won't, but I don't know. I love that kid. He's always smiling, which is just so nice to see. So we will see who their captain ends up being. And then in other Vegas Golden Knights news, just sticking between the two teams here, Vegas hired Bruce Cassidy as their head coach. We had just talked about how Boston fired him as their coach, and now he was the first coach hired in the pool of strong candidates for head coaches. So he goes to Vegas, and then the Philadelphia Flyers hired John Tortorella as their head coach. So Torts is back in the NHL as a coach, and I think that might work out for them. He is more defensive-minded, so hopefully it helps out poor Carter Hart, who is just often left out to dry, and it makes him seem like he's not as good of a goaltender as he is, and he's still a young kid. So hopefully with Torts' focus on defense, they will play a better all-around defensive game and help out poor Carter Hart there. Tortorella gets a lot of hate for being a super strict guy, but from everything I read from, like, legitimate sources, players enjoy playing for him, and he's a really nice guy and will go to bat for his players. Of course, he's always very dramatic with the media, and I think that's where it gets blown out of proportion. So it'll be fun having him around, especially in Philly. But the Flyers are a team that should be better than they were last season, so maybe this coaching change will help. They're replacing Mike Yeo, and I don't know how he still gets coaching jobs because he's failed at every stop along the way, but this is the NHL Old Boys Club, and that's how it goes, I guess. So you can probably expect one of these recycled coaches to end up in Chicago as well. But hopefully Kyle Davidson and the rest of the new crew here in Chicago choose to go with some fresh voices, but not too fresh, because we don't want anybody to get as much hate as Jeremy Colleton did. And we all know, well, not we all know, because most people did not like Jeremy Colleton, but I know that he was set up to fail from the beginning. So we'll see, but Vegas goes with Bruce Cassidy, Philadelphia goes with John Tortorella, and we will see where the other cards happen to fall as they keep going. We also have some players who have been re-signed. So Jeremy Lauzon of Nashville, he's a 25-year-old defenseman. He signed a 4-year, $2 million AAV extension. He played 66 games last season between Seattle and Nashville. He had 2 goals and 5 assists for 7 points. In Los Angeles, the Kings re-signed TJ Tynan, which is pretty much an AHL move, but they re-signed him for 2 years at $787,000 per season. He's a 30-year-old center. He played 62 games with the Ontario Reign last year, scoring 14 goals and 84 assists for 98 points. I blinked about 300 times when I looked at that stat line. 84 assists. Oh my goodness. He got into 2 games with the Kings but didn't score any points. So it's a depth move and basically for their American League team. In Dallas, we had 2 guys re-signed. Nicholas Camano, 1 year, $750,000. He's a 23-year-old winger. He played 47 games last season, or this season, depending on how you're looking at it, with the Texas Stars. He scored 8 goals and 6 assists for 14 points. And then Fredrik Karlstrom, he signed a 1-year extension with Dallas for $750,000. He's a 24-year-old center. He played 65 games with the Texas Stars, scoring 16 goals and 13 assists for 29 points. He played 3 games with Dallas this year and got 1 assist, and he scored the only goal for the Texas Stars in the playoffs. So there's that. In Ottawa, Dylan Gambrell signed an extension for 1 year at $950,000. He is a 25-year-old forward. He played 63 games for the Senators this season, scoring 3 goals and 4 assists for 7 points. In Columbus, Daniil Tarasov is a goaltender. He signed a 3-year extension for roughly $1 million per season. In Cleveland this season, he played 11 games, had a 5-3-4 record, but the Monsters were pretty bad. He had a .893 save percentage and a 3.06 goals against average, but again, the Monsters were pretty bad this season. He did get into 4 games with the Blue Jackets, had an 0-2 record, so he came in relief in a couple of those games. Had a .937 save percentage and a 2.40 goals against average. So the kid can play. We'll see what his season looks like next year. In New York, Sammy Bleh signed a 1-year extension for $1.525 million. And that's not the only news he made last week, but, go look that up on Twitter if you want to. I'm not going to go over that. He scored 4 assists in 14 games last season before tearing his ACL in November and then missing the rest of the year. So not a great year for him. So maybe sort of a prove-it deal, seeing if he can come back from that ACL tear and contribute to the team. In other NHL news, the NHL wants to have a World Cup of Hockey again in 2024. Of course, they had one in 2016. They're still in talks with the NHLPA and the IIHF about that, so we'll see where that goes. The NHL seems to be more focused on that than on sending their players to the Olympics where they really want to go. So, NHL things. But Bowman, Jesus Christ, focused on Chicago here. Bettman, I like them roughly about the same amount. Bettman spoke before Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Final and said things are feeling more normal for the NHL since COVID hit. More things are in person now, fans are back, all of that, and they are actually making money again. The league will exceed its revenue totals from 2018-19, which was the last full season that we had. Of course, 19-20 was cut short due to COVID. Then last year we had the shortened season. And then within 2 or 3 years, they anticipate resuming regular increases to the salary cap. So that will be good. Get back to that, and then teams won't have to worry as much about some of the contracts still on the books, and you can expect contracts will start getting higher again as the salary cap raises, and it's going up $1 million for next season, so it'll be $82.5 million. The 2022 draft in Montreal is going to continue as planned. It will be in person for the first time since 2019. That will be July 7th and 8th. And the 22-23 regular season will begin October 11th in North America. And I say in North America because Nashville and San Jose are playing 2 regular season games in Prague, but those will be on October 7th and 8th. So then they have travel time to get back to the States and all that. So you can mark that on your calendar if you're already counting down to next season. And if you're not a San Jose or Nashville fan, it starts October 11th. In other NHL news, the league now has an official heavy equipment and industrial power sponsor, that being Caterpillar. I thought that was so random. Apparently, they will focus on recognizing the people who manufacture, sell, and operate cat products and services. So we will see how that goes. If you use heavy equipment like that, maybe if this is something you're excited about, you'll be able to see it advertised more on NHL broadcasts, but it's pretty random. Other than that, we have the NHL awards coming up on Tuesday, and there's a few awards that still have yet to be announced that will be announced at the show. That being the Calder Trophy for the top rookie, the Ted Lindsay for the most outstanding player in the NHL, as voted on by fellow players of the NHLPA, the Hart Trophy for the NHL MVP, as voted on by the PHWA, the Professional Hockey Writers Association, the Norris Trophy for Best Defenseman, and the Vezina Trophy for Best Goaltender. And I have the finalists for those trophies here for you. I know we're winding down here in time, only have about a minute or so left, so I'll probably go over by a minute or two. I hope that's okay. But the finalists for the Calder are Michael Bunting. He's a 26-year-old winger for the Toronto Maple Leafs. In 79 games this season, he scored 23 goals and 40 assists for 63 points. You also have Trevor Zegras, a 21-year-old center for the Anaheim Ducks. In 75 games this year, he scored 23 goals and 38 assists for 61 points and was maybe the most exciting player to watch out on the ice. You never knew what he was going to do, but it was usually going to be something pretty crazy. Had the best goal of the season along with... who scored the actual goal? Sonny Milano, where he tossed the puck over the net and then Milano batted it in. Best goal of the season, hands down. And last but not least, the third finalist for the Calder is Moritz Seider, 21-year-old defenseman for the Detroit Red Wings. In 82 games played this season, he scored 7 goals and 43 assists for 50 points. And if you don't pay attention to the Red Wings or haven't heard much about Seider, but you do watch the NHL draft, you will remember him as the guy who was chosen 6th overall by the Wings and was absolutely shocked that he was chosen at that position and had a pretty amazing reaction to it. But moving on to the Ted Lindsay finalists, you have Roman Josi, the captain of the Nashville Predators, a 32-year-old defenseman. In 80 games this season, he scored 23 goals, 73 assists for 96 points as a defenseman. That's just absolutely insane. It was basically Roman Josi and Juuse Saros dragging Nashville to the playoffs. The second finalist is Austin Matthews, of course, of the Toronto Maple Leafs. 24 years old, he's a center. In 73 games played this season, he scored 60 goals, winning the Rocket Richard Trophy for most goals scored, and 46 assists for 106 points. And then you have Connor McDavid, 25 years old. It's crazy that he's only 25. Seems like he's been around forever at this point. He's a center. In 80 games played this season, he scored 44 goals and 79 assists for 123 points. Madness. Absolute madness. So the Hart Trophy. We have Austin Matthews of the Toronto Maple Leafs, again getting 106 points in 73 games, winning the Rocket with 60 goals. Connor McDavid with 123 points on the season. And then a goaltender, Igor Shesterkin of the New York Rangers. He's 26 years old. He played 53 games for the Rangers this year. He had a record of 36, 13, and 4, a .935 save percentage, and a 2.07 goals against average. Just a fantastic year for Igor Shesterkin, and he was great again for them in the playoffs. So then we have the Norris Trophy finalists for Best Defenseman. You have Victor Hedman of the Tampa Bay Lightning, of course. 31 years old, he played 82 games for Tampa this year, scoring 20 goals and 65 assists for 85 points. Then you have Roman Josi, again the captain of the Nashville Predators, scoring 96 points this season as a defenseman. And then Cale Makar of the Colorado Avalanche, 23 years old. Oh my gosh, he's so young. 77 games played for the Avalanche this year, 28 goals and 58 assists for 86 points. So you have two of the defensemen in the Stanley Cup Final up for the Norris. That's awesome. And then you have the Vezina Trophy finalists for Best Goaltender. Up first, Jacob Markstrom of the Calgary Flames. He's 32 years old. He played 63 games for Calgary this year. He had a record of 37, 15, and 9, a .922 save percentage, and a 2.22 goals against average. A fantastic regular season for Jacob Markstrom, and then a not-so-great playoffs. But the award is only chosen for the regular season, so it would be kind of funny if it went to Markstrom after all of that. The second one here is Juuse Saros. Again, like I said, it was basically Saros and Roman Josi dragging Nashville to the playoffs. He's a 27-year-old goaltender. He played 67 games for the Predators this season, had a record of 38, 25, and 3, a save percentage of .918, and a 2.64 goals against average. And then rounding out the finalists is Igor Shesterkin, again 26 years old, had a .935 save percentage and a 2.07 goals against average. My vote would go to Shesterkin, but we will see how the GMs choose to vote. Which brings us super quickly to the American Hockey League, because we have the Calder Cup Final opponents figured out. So in the last round, the conference finals, you had Springfield Thunderbirds taking on the Laval Rocket, and Springfield is the affiliate of the St. Louis Blues. Laval is the affiliate of the Montreal Canadiens. Springfield won that series 4-3 with a 4-0 win in Game 7. So they are moving on to the Calder Cup Final. And then you move out west here, and the Western Conference Final was between the Chicago Wolves, who are the affiliate of the Carolina Hurricanes, and the Stockton Heat, the affiliate of the Calgary Flames. And the Chicago Wolves won that series 4-2 with a 3-0 win in Game 6. So both of these teams got a shutout in their series-clinching games, and now they face off against each other in the Calder Cup Final, which starts on Sunday. So, Chicago Wolves up against the Springfield Thunderbirds. Who you got for the Calder? Let me know. But that brings us to the schedule for this weekend, and there are 2 hockey games on between the NHL and the American League. Saturday night, we have Game 2 between the Colorado Avalanche and the Tampa Bay Lightning, and on Sunday, we have Game 1 between the Chicago Wolves and the Springfield Thunderbirds. So that brings us to the end of this From Center Ice Happy Hour episode. I hope you all enjoyed it. Thank you so much for tuning in and watching along with me. I hope this was a nice way to wind down your week, let you know what's been going on here in the NHL, talk about the Stanley Cup Final a little bit. Of course, if you want to hear more from me or from Center Ice, FromCenterIce.com is the place to go. There's links to all the places over there. If you want to follow on social media, you can find the links to those platforms either in the description if you're watching this on YouTube, or in the show notes if you are listening on a podcast app. If you are listening to the audio-only version and would like to watch on YouTube, you can do that at youtube.com/c/FromCenterIce, and that link is also in the show notes for you. But, yeah, this has been another wonderful episode of the Happy Hour. It's been a pretty decent week for hockey, and we will see what this weekend brings for us. We got Game 2 of the Stanley Cup Final, Game 1 of the Calder Cup Final. It should be a good time. So thank you guys so much for tuning into this. I appreciate each and every one of you. I hope all of you have a wonderful weekend. We're supposed to have pretty good weather here in northern Illinois. I hope you have good weather wherever you are, whatever that means to you. And yeah, I hope you enjoy your weekend. Enjoy some hockey. Let me know what you've been up to. I look forward to chatting with you all. And I will catch you all either in the video for Game 2 or in the Cozy Cast coming up next week. So yeah, I will catch you all then. Bye, guys.